Real quick before I start this video, I recorded this about a month ago and it is long and it still needs an addendum, so bear with me on this one. So I started off this channel talking about something I don't like. Let's go the opposite direction now and talk about something that I honestly can't get enough of. Little Shop of Horrors. This is an amazing musical. If you haven't seen this, go see it. If you know me and you haven't seen this, shame on you, you have no excuse. Come to think of it, love might be too light of a word. Obsessed is likely more correct. Anyway, a little while ago, I found out that I had the opportunity to see it live. As you can imagine, I got very excited. I listened to the soundtrack at least once a day until the performance. Now, before I go further, I should mention I did go in expecting to be disappointed. After all, I had been listening to the soundtrack from a Broadway performance, so I went in not expecting much. And I was still disappointed. It was bad. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it was just not good at all. I don't want to get too much into it because I could, and I would rant. We don't need that right now. But to give an idea, the acting was shoddy, lines were forgotten, and at some points, the songs didn't even end in harmony. And on top of everything else, the Audrey 2 puppet was just disappointing in both construction and performance. As a person who's been a puppeteer since 4th grade, it was pitiful. And so I'm not just dumping on it the entire time. I do have to say the actor who played Audrey was fantastic. I loved her interpretation, and she really killed it in Somewhere That's Green. If they could just, time up their lines to the pre-recorded music, but I'm done. We'll end it there. So the day after I saw it, I was talking to a friend and venting my grievances about it. And after a while, he told me something that I've heard from a few people before. He said, "Well, Seth, I just think you're being too critical." And this is something I've heard from him before, so it wasn't too much of a surprise. But here's what I've been wondering. Is being overly critical necessarily a bad thing? Because the way I see it, I think it's actually more detrimental if we take the opposite route and are undercritical of the things we consume. If we go that route, we can start letting things into our lives that can honestly be troublesome. To give an example of somewhere where this happened, a while ago when it came out, I went to see War of the Planet of the Apes with some friends. Now, I really liked Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, so I was pretty excited to see this one too. I wasn't going in expecting to be disappointed. Then I saw it, and spoiler warning, if you were planning on seeing this movie and haven't yet, do not watch this. I am going to spoil the heck out of it. Just in case, I'm going to put a spoiler thing right here. I'd say mute it until it goes away and then we'll be done. So in this movie, the main bad guy is a guy that, if I remember right, they just really call him Colonel. He's painted as this really awful guy, and they show it very well by him killing Caesar's son, who was a major character in the last movie. But the thing is, it starts throwing things in that were a bit unsettling for me. Early in the movie, there are a few humans and apes that are being interrogated by Caesar and his crew. But the ape that had joined the human side tells Caesar that this Colonel guy is more than just a man. That was the first warning flag, but it's early in the movie, we'll see where it goes. And then we got to Colonel's base. There we see he's tied up apes in X's, in a way that looks a lot like crucifixion. Then, later when the Colonel captures Caesar and brings him to his office, we see he has a cross on his desk. Not only that, but he then proceeds to tell Caesar how he killed his only son to save humanity. Are you getting where I'm going with this? Because I couldn't help sit there and think, man, whoever wrote this really does not have a high opinion of Christianity. Now, I'm not saying that any movie that disagrees with my views on the world is automatically a bad movie. There are plenty of things that can have weird messages that I'm not necessarily in agreement with that I can still enjoy and get something out of. But I gotta admit, it did pull me out a little bit. And granted, none of this anti-Christian imagery really seems to go anywhere. Honestly, going in with that mindset kind of made me, if anything, just confused, because then the Colonel kills himself when he contracts the disease that makes him mute, and That really doesn't work with where I thought they were going. For those interested, Jeremy Jahns actually did a review of it, and he gives an interpretation that honestly makes a lot more sense than what I came up with. It just didn't seem nearly as shoved in my face as what I seem to see. I'll link to that video down in the description. But what stuck with me that night wasn't necessarily the imagery, but the fact that when I asked my friends about it, they didn't even see it. I mean, for me, red flags were popping up everywhere. Why wasn't it for them? People might say I'm overthinking things, but I don't think my interpretation was that far of a stretch. And even if I am overthinking it, death of authorial intent. Now, does being critical like this ruin movies for me? I'm not gonna lie, it kinda does. I was really excited to go see Guardians of the Galaxy 2, especially since it came out really close to my birthday. And I came out of that massively disappointed. The pacing was poor, the plot was cluttered, and I know people will disagree with me on this, but they massively changed Drax as a character. He went from being awkward to just being a pervert, and there's a big difference there. I was actually going to make a video ranting about all the problems I had with the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but once again, Jeremy Jahns did a really great review on it, kind of talking about all the things I already wanted to. Once again, link in the description. Not even subscribed to the guy, and I've already plugged him twice. There are other things I could get into, like Attack on Titan, but there's so many spoilers there, I'm not going to bother. Even though critical thinking like this can make some things less enjoyable, I think it is very important and lacking in our society today. In this day and age where anyone with a phone or a computer can reach out and give their opinion on something, you know, kinda like I'm doing right now, it's really important to know what's true and being able to differentiate that from what you're being told. And I'm not just talking about things like movies and musicals either. YouTube, podcasts, the news, and heck, even church. One thing my dad has told me for as long as I can remember is to be like the Bereans. For those of you who don't know who the Bereans are, they're referenced in the Bible in Acts 17, 10 through 12. It reads, "As soon as it was night, the brothers sent Paul and Silas off to Berea. On arrival, they went into the synagogues of the Jews. The people here were more open-minded than those in Thessalonica, since they welcomed the message with eagerness and examined the scriptures daily to see if these things were so. Consequently, many of them believed, and including a number of prominent Greek women as well as men." These people hung on to every single word that Paul and Silas said. But they didn't just leave it at that. They didn't just settle and take every single word they said as truth, not at all. They went through scripture and measured every single thing they said against it. And because of that, they believed. We should still be doing stuff like that today. I'm not saying you should just go into church and automatically doubt your pastor, but I am saying you should know the word well enough that when you hear something fishy, you can smell it out. Just don't use the message, use a real Bible. As an example, let's look at one of everyone's favorite chapter to misquote, Jeremiah 29. Specifically, Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you. This is the Lord's declaration. Plans for your welfare, not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." That sounds really great, until you realize what he's really saying. Heck, you can see right in the verse before, it says, it's going to be 70 years before they return to their home. I'm not sure any of these people are going to be alive in 70 years when they go back home. If you think of it that way, he's not saying everything's going to be fine. He's saying, get comfortable, because you will die in exile, but I'll be here for you, and that's enough. Is that a fun way to read the verse? No, of course not. But when you read it this way, you see the love God has for Israel and the fact that even in exile, he's still going to care for them. He hasn't abandoned them, even though they kind of abandoned him. And one more thing, just before I close off this video, I want to give one more reason why I think it's important to go at things more critically. While being critical may ruin some things that aren't so great, it can really magnify the things that are. Which brings me back, of course, to Little Shop of Horrors. Can you tell I love this musical? Just about every time I listen to the soundtrack or watch the movie adaptation, I just seem to find some new juicy morsel that just blows my mind. I have been waiting for the opportunity to just gush over this musical. Not yet. Not yet. I have some other projects on my plate right now, and they unfortunately take priority. But once they are done, believe me, I am going to record what my little brother has referred to as my dissertation on Little Shop of Horrors. And it will be awesome. But until then, this is Seth, and this has been a thorn in my side. A thorn of a plant, perhaps. okay, I have to admit, I kind of think Suddenly Seymour's a dumb song, because if you get down to it, it's, hey, I just killed your boyfriend. You should love me. It's so dumb, but I still love it. Oh no. Oh no. You poop-flinging butt muffin.